The Wii U was a mistake, and I wish it wasn't. At a time where graphics were mainly a priority, and yes, there was even some good gameplay too, the Wii U seems to fall short, especially when it's sandwiched between the PS3 and Xbox 360 era and the PS4 and Xbox One era. Let's look to see what the mistakes that were made with this console and why it didn't sell nearly as well as it probably should have. The price at the time. Listen, the price isn't the issue if you were to look at it just by itself, but during that era, the competition was a bit tougher. Having the console be only $50 more than the original Wii back in 2006 would have been seen as an absolute positive during this time, especially for the consumer. But the issue is, it had to compete with the PS3 Slim and Xbox 360 Slim, which were both lower priced by this time, since the Wii U came out in November of 2012, and that's holiday season, meaning most of these consoles were more than likely going to be on sale, where the one console that was coming out new wasn't going to be. But that's one of the issues as well that I don't think it's talked about in terms of the competition of the price, because $299.99 could have been seen as a godsend compared to what was going to become of other consoles in the future. Especially how things are now, the Wii U looks better in retrospect, as most of these consoles sometimes do. Not the original PS3 model, that was atrocious. $599 and $499. Good one, Sony. The other issues that the Wii U had was the absurd design. The gamepad was clunky for its size, it's a bit too wide, and having the sticks as far apart as they were didn't really help with playing the game. It didn't feel the best, especially compared to a PS3 or Xbox 360 controller at the time. And it was a poor combination of a regular controller and a touchpad all in one. There's a reason why touchpads don't have joysticks on them, okay? If I want to just touch the screen, I'll just touch the screen. I can have separate things instead of trying to combine what you perceive as the best of both worlds, but actually not becoming the best of both worlds out of it, which is insane because you think they would, but Nintendo really didn't care during this period of time. They were just going to get it out to get it out. You couldn't use the gamepad too far away from the console. It kind of negates the whole point of having mobility with it. If you want a mobile console, you can't sit there and rely on being a certain distance away from the console in order for it to work. It just didn't make any sense. Especially if you had kids, you try to give it to your kids like, oh yeah, have fun playing upstairs. Connection error. Nice try though. Which was end up fixed with the Switch. That's why the Wii U just feels like a Switch prototype overall. Waiting 5 years to correct the mistake. Also, the problem that I have usually with Nintendo and their add-ons, their bonuses, their accessories, it didn't include a standard controller. So if you disliked the gamepad and the features that came with it and you didn't feel like it was the best controller around, you'd have to buy a separate controller. Where the GameCube didn't need to do that. The original controller was the best. And heck, they even re-released the GameCube controller with a USB add-on for the Wii U, so you could play with the new GameCube controllers, which you'll pay more money for, just so you could do a little bit better in Smash. Or play any of the old games that came out on there if you wanted to, or play Wii games on and other things that had it on there. Now, another problem with the Wii U was the specifications. A weaker CPU meant that games were able to run at a proper 60 frames per second, which is insane during this time because PS3 and Xbox 360 had the same issues. But the problem is, you're a generation ahead, not a generation behind. You were released in 2012. The PS3, especially the Slim models, were like 2009, 2011. They didn't really upgrade the GPU and CPU that much to where the games aren't necessarily going to run properly at 60 all the time. That was a very bad era for frame rate in general with these consoles. But they had pretty good storage for the most part. Xbox 360 kind of started rough, so did PS3. And then by the time the Wii U comes out, they were already having 250, 320 gigabyte hard drives, which is insane amount of space during this period of time, especially for how small PS3 games were until you got into like the 2012, 2013 era. But the Wii U did have a slightly better GPU, but it only had 2 gigabytes of RAM, which was more than the other two, but the problem is half of it was being used for the operating system, which means it was actually slower at reading memory than the PS3 and Xbox 360. Based on these specifications alone, people were already thinking this console was not going to sell well in comparison to the PS3 and Xbox 360 as a proper successor to the Wii. Look at this post from 2012. They're like, yeah, this thing's gonna bomb. They already knew it in 2012. I'm not saying there wasn't video game discussion before the pandemic or any era, but it's just shocking sometimes to see how aware people were even during these times, especially since this was supposed to be the proper successor to the Wii. Storage space was limited on all models, lowest being 8 gigabytes to the highest being 32 gigabytes, which is awful during this period of time. As I said before, 250 on Xbox 360s, some of them the slim one maybe. The PS3 Slims were like 160 to 320 gigabyte, which is crazy in 2012 to have such a low storage space, but I think they relied more on the game being on the card than necessarily having storage space in the console, obviously. Which also means that if you want to save other forms of media on the Wii U, like pictures, video, listen to music, you couldn't do it efficiently like the PS3 could at this time in its life cycle, or the Xbox 360 for that matter. There's just not enough storage space for anything to be useful. That's really what the issue was with Nintendo during this period of time. time is not seeing it more than a video game console. Sony already knew that with the PS2. They already got the gist of it. Oh yeah, DVD player, CD player, whatever. You'll play music and watch videos on it, go ahead. And they knew that when Blu-ray for PS3, it's like, yep, absolutely. We're going to be the pinnacle of being able to play videos as well, which were still used back then before streaming services got big. Now, we're done with the specifications there. There isn't really much else to talk about in terms of its specifications right now. If you want to add more, you can do it in the comments. But also, one of the biggest issues with the Wii U was the video game selection. The most important thing about the console is whether or not it has games. It doesn't matter how good the console looks. It doesn't matter how good the console runs. It doesn't matter how good the controller feels. If it has no good games, then it's more than likely not worth even touching. The PS5 is going through this sort of schism because all the exclusives it used to have on it are now on Steam. They're all gone. They're all gone. I don't know a single PS5 exclusive off the top of my head. Like I said, Stellar Blade was the last PS5 exclusive, and that went to Steam, in June of this year? I don't know if they're going to have any more. They're basically on the latter end of the PS5's life cycle. And the Wii U also had a similar issue. Now, I could say that it has more exclusives than the PS5, which is insane to talk about them with a console from 2012, but they're usually your standard Mario, Zelda, Smash Bros, and Kirby games. Obviously, there's more than just that, but those are some of the major examples. You know, the lack of third-party developers on this console really hurt this console. Switch did a lot better job with it, especially getting third parties to have exclusive on the consoles more often. And there is some third-party games on there, like Bayonetta 2. Splatoon's not a third-party game, but it is a new Nintendo franchise that were also on this console. It's not like they didn't develop anything new on it. It's just there's barely any good games to play on it besides the standard Nintendo franchises. Now, there is a relative good to the Wii U. I know I've spoken some of the good things with the Wii U, but these are specifics about the Wii U that maybe people underestimate or didn't appreciate enough at the time, especially how things have gone now. The Wii U was one of two consoles that had free online from the HD era of consoles, like the PS3 and the Wii U. The Xbox 360 you had to pay, the Switch you end up having to pay, the Switch 2 obviously as well, and that's insane to me because I don't think people talk about that with the Wii U having free online. It was the only console of that generation, if you consider it part of the PS4 and Xbox One generation, to also have free online, and it still didn't sell well. Tells you a lot, huh? About the 2012 to 2017 gamer and the modern gamer now. Another relative good, and this will be specifically imperative about the relative part, is that it had decent remasters such as Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. And the relative part about this is that they were overpriced for the time. $50 for Wind Waker HD and $60 for Twilight Princess HD. Disrespectively. Not respectively. Disrespectively. It's an appalling price for those high-definition GameCube games, essentially. Even if they ran better and looked better, it doesn't justify the price of essentially a remaster of a game. That's way too high. Maybe $19.99 for Wind Waker and $29.99 for Twilight Princess, or both just $20 in my opinion, should have been the price for that. And I think it would have got a bit more praise for lowering the price a bit too. But overall, I think the Wii U could have been much better, and it's a disappointment that was eventually discontinued after only lasting less than 5 years on the market just to be replaced with the Switch. Have a good one. More videos on the way.